page, we're going to write perfect squares, because one of the things about simplifying your radicals that you have to know is you have to know your perfect squares. So 1 is always an option, but it's not something you can necessarily do much with. So the next one would be 2 squared, which is 4, 3 squared, 9, 4 squared, 16, 25, 36, 49, where am I at? 7, 8, 64, 81, that was 9, 100, 121, 144. Now, typically, this is about as far as we go. We go all the way up to 12 squared. If I were you, you're not going to have a test this week. Your test is next week. As soon as you get your test, I would write perfect squares somewhere and list them out, so that when you get to the point where you're simplifying your radicals, you know what they are. Because remember, when I simplify a radical, I'm looking for factors of that number that are a perfect square. Now, the next thing that's important to remember, at least for today, we're not going to get too much into like the I squared, the I cubed stuff that we did last time. But you do have to know, if you have a square root of a negative number, that is always going to produce an I. So that is something that we will be using in the quadratic formula. Now, the quadratic formula itself, with the x equals blah, blah, blah. What this is doing is this is giving you a solution to a quadratic equation. Now, this is something that can be used in any case, but if factoring doesn't work, generally the quadratic formula is your best option. Now, one thing about this that I'm going to tell you is we give you this, so you do not have to memorize. You will have this equation on your test. So don't feel like you have to go in and memorize. There's a very annoying song, if you Google like quadratic formula song on YouTube, that comes up, and it's an easy way to remember it, but we give it to you because it's on the district exam. They give you this formula on that one as well. Now, what you do have to know is you have to know, when I go in, there's a part of this quadratic formula that we use to determine the type of solutions. And that is referred to as the discriminant. So this part underneath the square root, this b squared minus 4ac, that is the discriminant. And so what we will ask you to do sometimes is we'll ask you to find the value of the discriminant, and that's going to tell you how many solutions you're going to have and what type. And by type, I mean, is it going to be a real number with no imaginary, or is it going to have an imaginary part? So when you get that discriminant, there's 3 possibilities for what your answer could be. It can either be greater than 0, basically meaning that it's a positive number. If it's a positive number, that means you're going to have 2 real solutions. No imaginary at all. So if you go in and you find b squared minus 4ac, and the a, b, and c is coming from standard form, ax squared plus bx plus c. And it's a positive number, it's 2 real solutions, no imaginary parts whatsoever. If you go in and you get 0, that means you're only going to have 1 real solution. And the reason that that happens is normally the square root part is behind a plus or minus, which is why we get 2 answers. But if that number behind the plus or minus is 0, you're not actually adding and subtracting, so you only have 1 answer. And then the last option, if you end up with a negative number, so anything less than 0, that means you're going to have 2, and what we call it is we call it a complex solution. Now, the reason why it's complex, just to kind of bring some stuff back from the 5.5 lesson, is there's a real part and there is an imaginary part. So remember, anything that doesn't have the I is what we consider to be real, and anything that has the I is what we consider to be imaginary. Imaginary. So normally, and I will say, at least for the sake of what this is going to look like in your formative, we always write the real part first. So I will always put that number before the plus or minus the imaginary part. Okay, again, you don't have to memorize the formula. I will tell you this, we do not label the discriminant. It is written exactly how you see it on your paper right now. You have to know that the discriminant is the b squared minus 4ac. We do not give you this table. So you do have to know if it's positive, it's 2 real. If it's negative, it's 2 complex. If it's 0, it's 1 real. That is what you do have to memorize. You have to know that for your test next week. So let's go in, let's figure out some of these solutions. So the first thing, I like to go in and I like to identify A, B, and C. Remember, standard form is ax squared plus bx plus c. So in this case, A is equal to 8, B is equal to 2, and C is equal to -1. So that's telling me the values that I'm going to use to plug into the quadratic formula. Now, for this type of problem, one of the steps that we give you partial credit for is taking A, B, and C and plugging it into the formula correctly. So I will always ask that you have a step where you're going in and you're plugging in the values. So x equals, and I'm literally plugging into the formula. I don't want to scroll so you can still see my page, but at the top, I'm plugging into that x equals negative whatever. So x equals negative b plus or minus, well, hold on, stop, pause. I'm going too far. We just want the discriminant. So we just want to find b squared minus 4ac. I was going to go ahead and solve the whole thing. That's all we want. So I'm going to take my 2 squared minus 4. My a is 8. My c is -1. The one thing that's going to be important for these types of problems is that you keep your signs organized, because sometimes forgetting a negative is going to completely change your answer. So what is 2 squared? 4. So I got 4. And then we can kind of take this piece by piece. What's 4 times 8? What's 4 times 8? 32. And then what's 32 times -1? -32. So I'm really going in and I'm subtracting -32. What happens when you have 2 negatives? You add them together, it becomes positive. This is why I said it's really, really important you pay attention to your signs. So what is 4 plus 32? 36. Now, this is my discriminant, but that doesn't necessarily answer the question of how many solutions do we have and what type. So if I had a question that asked me, what is the discriminant, that would be this number, 36. So since it's a positive number, what type of solutions do I have? 2 real solutions. So I'm just going to say 2 real solutions. And that is my answer. So all we're doing is plugging in to b squared minus 4ac. Now for number 2, I have a is equal to 12, b is equal to 4, and c is equal to -3. And I'm plugging into the exact same thing. I'm going into b squared minus 4ac. My b value in this case is 4. 4 squared minus 4. My a is 12. And my c is -3. So 4 squared is 16. And then if you kind of get stuck and you're like, okay, 4 and 12 and 3, multiply the smaller numbers first. Sometimes that helps. What's -4 times -3? Positive 12. And what's positive 12 times positive 12? Plus 144. Take these in parts. It doesn't have to be you're doing all of this math in your head at one time. Do the small things first and then put them together with the bigger things. So what is 16 plus 144? 160. And so if I get 160, that is a positive number, correct? So how many solutions do I have? 2 real solutions. And the last one, I have A is 2, B is 5, C is 10. And then I'm going to be plugging into B squared, so 5 squared minus 4, my A, and my C. So I'm going to have 25. 4 times 2 is 8. And what's 8 times 10? 80 minus 80. Now, I know sometimes negatives get to be a little weird. So 25 minus 80, when I see that, I actually go in and the work that I do is I actually see what's 80 minus 25 because it's kind of the same thing. It's just whatever number I get from this, I'm going to make it negative. So to take you back to subtraction, you can always borrow. Becomes 10. 10 minus 5 is 5. 55. So all of your very basic math skills you did, like in 3rd and 4th grade, they still apply. So my discriminant in this case is negative 55. So if it's a negative number, what type of solutions do I have? 2 complex solutions. 2 complex solutions. So all you're doing is plugging in and then seeing what type of number you get. Is it positive? Is it negative? Is it 0? If it's 0, the only one that wasn't on here, it would be 1 real solution. Yes. What did we write up here? It's got a real part and it's got an imaginary part. Yep, we did. We talked about it.
So when we're solving the whole thing and then we get the discriminant,
We'll get there. We're going to do one with the whole thing in just a second. No, you're fine. We'll get there. Okay, so another type of question you can get asked is if we give you an equation, so this is 9x squared plus bx plus 4, and they want to make it so that it has one solution. So what does the discriminant b squared minus 4ac, what does it have to be in order to have one real solution? It has to be equal to 0. So if I want to have one solution, that means I need to set b squared minus 4ac equal to 0. Now, the only difference in this case is we have a is 9. In this case, we don't know what b is yet. So I'm just going to leave it as b. I'm not going to make it anything else. I'm just going to keep it as b. And then we have c is equal to 4. So all I'm going to do is fill in what I know and solve for what I don't. So I'm going to have b squared minus 4. My a was 9 and my c was 4. And I know that this whole thing has to be equal to 0. So I plugged in what I knew. The only thing I don't know is b, so that's what I have to solve for. So in this case, I have 4 times 9 times 4. Truthfully, that's not something I know off the top of my head, but I do know what 9 times 4 is. What's 9 times 4? 36. 36 for 24, 144. 6 times 4 is 24. 4 times 3 is 12. Plus 2 is 14. Just some regular multiplication. It's going to be negative. Yeah, so I'm going to have b squared minus 144 is equal to 0. If I wanted to solve for b, what's my next step? Can I take the square root yet? Let's add the 144. That is your only option. That is what you have to do. Your other option would be to factor it, which 144. Now that I have 144 on the other side, what can I do to both sides of the equation? Square root. I'm going to square root the left. I'm going to square root the right. There was a special thing that we had to remember when you're taking the square root, when you're solving, what do we have to have? A plus or minus. Thank you, Layton. B is equal to plus or minus. What is the square root of 144? 12. Plus minus. I am like 1 page away from having your test graded. They'll be in by the end of the day. And there's a lot of people who forgot plus minus on multiple problems. Lots of people. Two answers. I can tell you that right now because I was just looking at them. Lots of people who forgot plus minus. Okay, let's go to the back. Okay, let's do a full quadratic equation. Now, the one thing I'm going to tell you, I get this question a ton on tests. You have to know what the question wants you to do with the way it asks. If we say use the quadratic formula, you have to use the quadratic formula. There were some of you where it said to use the completing the square and you solve by factoring. You don't get points for that. You have to solve by the way you are told to solve. So let's go in. Let's go ahead and identify what is my A? 4. What is my B? -6. And my C is 2. Now, the one thing you have to be careful of, this question wants me to solve. So that means I need to use the full quadratic formula. So if you need to write it at the top so you don't have to flip back and forth, it's -b plus or minus the square root b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. I'm only writing it there so you don't have to go backwards and forwards from the front page to the back. This is not something you have to memorize. We give it to you on the test. We are using the whole thing. So if it tells you to solve, we're using the entire quadratic formula. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to plug in what I know. X equals negative my b value. Here's where a lot of people make mistakes. If it's a negative value for your b, because of the negative in the formula, it's actually going to turn it positive. I'm not going to do that yet. I'm just plugging in directly to the equation. Plus or minus the square root. My b value is -6 squared minus 4. And this part that I'm doing right now is the discriminant. And the reason why we are able to determine how many solutions we have from it is because it's the number that's being square rooted. So that's what's making it imaginary or real. All over 2 times a. Another thing that a lot of people forget, they do all of the top part perfectly, and then they will forget to divide it by 2a. Don't make that mistake. Okay, let's go in. We said 2 negatives make a what? A positive. So 6 plus minus the square root. When I do this, I do it in parts. So what is -6 squared? Positive 36. And then if I look at the signs of what I'm working with in the second half of the discriminant, it's still going to be negative. What's 4 times 4? 16. What's 16 times 2? 32. There we go. All over, what is 2 times 4? 8. Okay, now again, whenever you're doing your test, you are working for partial credit. All of these little steps that I take are things where, say for instance, for some reason you messed up 36 minus 32, I can give you partial credit for everything you've done up until this point. If you do all of the math in your head and it's wrong, I can't give you anything. So write out all of your steps. What is 36 minus 32? Square root of 4 all over 8. Can I simplify the square root of 4? To 2. So 6 plus or minus 2 all over 8. What do you think we have to do looking at our answers and seeing that there's no more radicals? We have to split it. We have to make our answers be two numbers. So I'm going to go in. I'm going to have 6 plus 2 over 8. And I'm going to have 6 minus 2 over 8. So what is 6 plus 2? 8. And 8 over 8 is 1. Okay. What's 6 minus 2? 4. 4 over 8. If you get a fraction like this, the expectation is going to be that you simplify it. What does this simplify to be? 1/2. These two are our answers. So anytime you are solving a quadratic, in this case, because our discriminant was positive, we should get 2 real solutions. I have 2 real solutions. So that is one possibility for the answers you can get. Let's try another one. So what is my A? 9. My B is -6. My C is 1. So I know my A, my B, my C. I'm doing the exact same steps. I'm going to the quadratic formula and I'm plugging in A, B, and C where they are in the equation. So I'm going to have x equals -b plus or minus the square root. Be careful here and make sure that you're squaring that negative and making it positive. B squared minus 4. A is 9. C is 1. All over 2A. And I will say, one of the points that we give you for a question like this is, did they at least just take the numbers and plug them in correctly? So going in and just doing this step is going to get you points for a question like this. So do it. Even if you're like, I can't do anything past that point, identify A, B, and C and plug it in. Okay, we've done this before. We said 2 negatives make a positive. So I'm going to have x equals 6 plus minus the square root 36. And what is 9 times 4? 36. So I have 36 times 1, which is still just 36. And then all over 18. So x equals 6 plus or minus the square root of 0 all over 18. In this case, my discriminant is 0. So how many solutions should I have? One real solution. What is the square root of 0? 0. Does it matter if I add or subtract 0? Is that going to change anything? No. So what can really happen, once that discriminant is 0, we kind of just ignore it. Like, it doesn't matter. It's not going to make a difference because adding 0 and subtracting 0 isn't going to change your answer. So I end up with 6 over 18. Do 6 and 18 have a common factor? What is it? Bigger. 6. There we go. 6. 1 over 3. My question was, what is their common factor, not what is the answer? Their common factor is 6. You can divide the top by 6 and the bottom by 6. Okay, let's try another one. Can I go in and identify A, B, and C with what I'm looking at right now? No. What do I need to do first? I need to subtract 3. So I'm going to move this 3 over. 2x squared plus 3x minus 3 equals 0. My A value. I will tell you this. If you identified your A, B, and C without moving everything over, it would be incorrect. Everything has to be on one side together. So my A is 2, my B is 3, and my C is -3. I want you to take the quadratic formula, plug in A, B, and C. So try it on your own first, and then we will see what we get. Take your A, take your B, take your C, plug it into the quadratic formula. Yes, I do. Yes. No, you need to do your work. You would be in a lot more pain than that. All over what?
Oh. Wait, -6 is always the first is always there?
Mm-mm.
Oh wait, that's just negative B.
Negative B, yeah. Nala, I'm going to move you if you do not stop. I'm serious. Stop.
Oh, can we solve it?
You can keep going. Yes, if you want to keep going, you can keep going. If you want to keep going, you can. I'm going to do a couple steps and then I'm going to walk around again. And if we can't do anything with it, we leave it alone. Yep, you leave it alone. You don't touch it. So then you leave it alone. Yes. Make sure when you write this, it's all over 4.
Wait, what?
The whole thing is over 4. So like the whole thing is over 2a. So like this looks like you're just dividing the square root of 33. Yes.
Okay. After this, I can just add these together, right?
Correct. Is that 44? I don't think. I was gonna say I don't think that's.
That was the first one. That was the first time I did that. I didn't even know who.
Wait. 24, 25, 27, 28, 29, 30.
Does 33 have a factor that is a perfect square? No. So if it does not have a factor that is a perfect square, there is nothing you can do. So this is going to be our final answer. That's the answer. What do you mean? What would we find? This is 2 real solutions. Complex means I would be a part of it. Positive. 2 real. Okay, I want you to look at number 8. I want you to move everything to one side. Move everything to one side of the equation. Step 1.
Wait, we do that.
Can I have a piece of notebook paper?
4.
Because I keep running out of room.
No, we're almost done. For number 8, move everything to one side. We're going to simplify the radical. So kind of like what we were doing in the warm-up. Move everything to one side of the equation. Carlos, Max, number 8.
Oh.
Move everything to one side.
I accidentally put all the numbers wrong on number 7. It's the equation somehow.
How did you do that?
I honestly have never.
Move everything to one side. Move everything to one side, Tyler.
X squared plus 2x. I think we get it. Wait.
Once you have everything on one side of the equation, fill in the quadratic formula. What's 3x squared minus 2x squared? 1x squared. Plug into the quadratic formula with your A, your B, and your C. Make sure your A, B, and C are correct before you do that. So for this, do they all have something in common that I can simplify by? So we're going to pull that out as well. I'll go over it in a second. You need to quit leaving trash on my table.
I didn't leave trash.
I always pick up trash from that area, and I know who it is. Even your water bottle was left there.
Yeah, that's
That's why I can't think.
You're doing good. Keep going. Hold on. 4 minus 20 is positive 16? Negative 16.
Miss Martinez, how is it 5?
What's 2 plus 3?
Why are we adding?
What? Opposite of subtraction.
Sorry.
Wait, so if it's a negative inside there, then it would be what?
An I is going to come out.
So 4i?
4i.
Kind of like
Over 2. No, you should have used it. That was not crazy.
it was.
Miss, I feel like Thomas.
Mm-hmm.
I have a question.
Wait, 16 is in the square root. Wait, hold on.
Can I simplify that radical?
Miss Martinez?
You sure can. I would look at it.
Let's not make it like
Yes. What's your question?
Isn't it only 4i?
Correct.
So, but then how do I solve from there?
I'm going to get there. I'm going to get there. Red bucket. What'd you get, Liam?
Oh, I got.
You're not done, Liam.
I got 4i.
Okay, we'll get there in a second. That's good. You're on the right step. You can. You need to simplify that radical first. Hold on. Okay, I need your attention. I need your full attention. With the square root of negative 16, remember we talked about how if there is a negative number, you are going to have an imaginary solution. So there's two parts that you kind of have to look at. You have to kind of think of this and to kind of put it in perspective of what we did last time. We were thinking of this like the square root of 16 times the square root of negative 1. What is the square root of 16? 4. What is the square root of negative 1? I. So whenever I have square root of negative 16, I'm replacing that entire radical with 4i. So I'm going to have x equals negative 2 plus or minus 4i all over 2. Now there's one last step. Is there something, if I look at my final answer, that all three terms have in common? They're all divisible by 2. So do you think we should divide them by 2? Yes, we should. So if I divide it by 2, I'm going to have negative 1 plus or minus 2i. Now, there's two options. If I divide it by 1, because that's 2 divided by 2, is it still just the same thing? Yeah. So you could leave it like this, and that would be perfectly fine because it's divided by 1. But if you want to write it as negative 1 plus or minus 2i all over 1, that's also an option. But if you don't want to write it over 1, you don't have to, because that is not something we would normally do any other time we are simplifying. So if you look at your final answer, even if it's not imaginary, say for instance it's a regular problem and they all have something in common, you simplify what they have in common. Okay, these last two will take us no time. If I have x squared plus 4 and I wanted to solve, what's the first thing I should do? We did this already. Subtract 4. X squared equals negative 4. Now what do? Square root. What is the one thing you have to remember when you are solving by square roots? Plus or minus. So x equals plus or minus. If I wanted to simplify the square root of negative 4, what does that simplify to? 2i. There's your answer. Okay. Do I have to move anything over for number 10? Can I move anything over if everything is being squared? Can I touch anything inside the parentheses currently? No. So what's the first thing I should do?
Subtract.
Square it. So I have x minus 7. Now, I have plus or minus the square root of negative 12. And I'm going to write it like that because we're going to break this down a little bit. There is a factor of 12 that is a perfect square. What is that factor? 4 and 3. So I'm going to have x minus 7. And just to kind of write this in a way that hopefully makes sense, we are going to have this as the square root of 4 times the square root of negative 1 times the square root of 3. This step that I just wrote, you don't have to write this. If you can do that in your head and know 4 and 3 are the factors, that's perfectly fine. The only reason I'm writing it like this is so that you can see this is going to turn into, what's the square root of 4? 2. What's the square root of negative 1? I. And then can I simplify the square root of 3? No. So it's going to stay the square root of 3. So all I did was take the parts of negative 12 that could be pulled out of the radical, and I simplified those parts. What is my last step? Add the 7. So I'm going to have x equals 7 plus or minus 2i square roots of 3. Here's my disclaimer. This is a real part. This is an imaginary part. You cannot combine real parts and imaginary parts. You cannot make this 9 or 5. They are separate things, so your final answer is just the 7 plus or minus 2i, and it is too complex. Yes, that's correct. Because we have 2 imaginary. Did you do plus 7 at the very back? Yes, that should be fine. Okay. All right.